But yeah, Joe Biden said this was justified, and he reiterated in his little speech that Israel has a right to defend itself. And I don't understand how targeting an airstrike in another country to murder a political opponent or a political enemy in a neighboring country can be considered self-defense. If I go into your house,
American.
yeah, we've made this analogy before, but like
Saddam Hussein.
yeah, well, sure, there's that, but it's just like I don't understand. It's like I can't go into your place of business or your place of work or your house, murder you, and take your food, and then come back to my house and say, well, it's self-defense, man.
Imagine you close your door, lock it up, walk over like 3 houses down to your neighbor's house. You open up the door. It just happens to be open because they're open people. And then you walk up their staircase, open their bedroom door, shoot the guy in the head. Sorry, that was just self-defense.
Yeah.
Close the door and go back.
It's absolutely.
Police come. It's like, hey
insane.
man, they might have done something in the future, so I made sure to take care of it now.
Yeah.
Like, what? Before we get to the video, please like, comment, subscribe, share it to that uncle who's a communist. And if he isn't, he will be.
Don't forget to follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionary rhetoric. And Revolutionary Rhetoric is an affiliate of the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network.
All right, let's get to the video.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Episode 49. Thanks so much for all the support we've received from last week. The kind of, I don't know what you'd call that, vlog style video. Was that fair?
Podcast on the road.
The road podcast, the filmed version where we were out on the road chatting with folks at the Boeing strike. We've just received a lot of positive kind of like response to that in particular, which we're just very stoked on. We're very appreciative of, and it means a whole lot to us. So we're going to continue doing that. It's official now, so we can announce it. Next Thursday, October 10th, Claudia De La Cruz and Karina Garcia will be in Seattle for a rally at in like kind of the U District, I believe, somewhere in Central Seattle. And we are going to be at that event. We're waiting to hear back on whether or not we can actually be like official press at the event. That would be like the best case scenario, so we could bring our equipment into the Washington Hall. But what I am assuming will more than likely happen is that we'll be attending the events just as civilians, as bystanders, and then have our gear in a nearby car or something, and then one of us will just leave the rally, or both of us will leave the rally.
Yeah, we'll leave
a few minutes early, go get the gear set up outside, and kind of do exit interviews with folks. That's the goal, at least. I think we haven't quite hammered down like what the game plan is, but regardless, we're going to be in downtown Washington interviewing and acting as press at the Claudia De La Cruz and Karina Garcia PSL rally, the presidential candidates. If you aren't aware, it's the PSL candidates for president, the only socialist presidential candidates for this election cycle. I know they're on the ballot in Washington State. I know I'm voting for them.
That's what I'm voting for as well.
Yeah. So if check your go follow them. First of all, follow them on social media. They have a pretty huge social media presence, and then they're pushing to get their names on the ballots in most states, and they have maps of what states they are balloted in. And check your state, and if you're tired of kind of the capitalist class ruling over you, whether it's in a blue tie or a red tie, consider voting for somebody else who has a better vision for a future, an actual vision for a future, and actual policy ideas.
They're also, I think they're having like write-in campaigns in the 2 states.
Yeah, in any states that they're not on the official ballots for, they're doing huge write-in campaigns. And obviously, we're not naive; like we're not expecting them to
win. Obviously, but the whole point is to get some some sort of socialist party, get their name out more, make more people aware that there are other choices, and then if we can actually have a party that grabs the majority of socialist votes, we would be a stronger power in this liberal democracy.
Yeah,
you got to do what you can do in the system that we're in. So
yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point, because like recently somebody had said to me, I mentioned Claudia and Karina, or Claudia, supporting Claudia and Karina, and I mentioned like that's who I'm voting for, or like I didn't say that explicitly, but I alluded to the fact that that's who I was going to be supporting. And then some person said like, oh, so the person who's gonna like make sure Trump wins, and like that was the attitude they had of like all third party candidates are just spoiler candidates that will ensure a Trump victory.
That's what they say every.
That's what they say. First of all, that's what they say every year. And also, like, if that's the case, I don't really care. But more importantly, if you believe that the third party candidate has that much power. And this was the point I saw that was like really well articulated that I'm going to butcher probably. But the general gist of it was that if you believe a third party candidate is only a spoiler and they have the power to topple an election one way or the other, wouldn't it serve your interest to listen to them? Wouldn't it like be like, okay, well, they have a lot of power. Maybe I should, instead of just berating them, maybe I should actually like take them seriously. If you believe that our votes is the decision between Harris winning or losing an election, instead of making fun of me, wouldn't a better tactic be to listen to what I have to say and maybe like hear me?
Yeah, that's what I think it was Bob. Yeah, Bob from the Green Podcast that literally put a short out on. He's like, if you're gonna blame the election being lost because of third party candidates, it's like, damn well, yeah, we'll take the blame.
I will take. I'm happy to take that blame.
Listen to us.
So next time you listen to me. But they've proven time and time again that they won't listen to you. They refuse to listen, and I
refuse to care.
Yeah, that's not my problem.
Because like
if you're that bad at politics that you can't see the easiest path to victory is to working with these people, like to giving us what we want. If Harris said today, you socialize healthcare, we're gonna just send in the National Guard and open every abortion clinic in the country, and we're gonna like nationalize the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
I'd vote for her today.
Yeah, because
but she's not gonna say that, so
exactly.
I'm not gonna vote for her. Like. It's pretty clear. Like if you just support these like clearly common sense policies that leftists want, and the majority of Americans want, by the way, you'd win the election. But instead, you're going to just keep sending billions to Israel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think what they're thinking, worst case scenario for them, and by them I'm saying the Democrats and the Republicans, is if we open the party to other, not the party, but they open the country and the country's politics to other parties, such as in Germany, which is also still a liberal democracy, don't get me wrong, but they still give the option for, hey, there is a communist party here, there is a socialist party.
We covered all those. We covered France and in England and all of these countries that have like these multiple political parties. And yeah, sure, the coalition governments and the majority governments in these places are still like center right liberal like reactionary governments, but like at least they have communist parties that like still, whether they don't have the full kind of like power that we as communists would like to see, but at least they have some power in parliament. They have a voice. Yeah, like leftists in America have no voice. Where like, if we say, hey, we don't like your policies, so we're going to vote for this leftist candidate, we are. So
you're voting for the
so you like Trump? Oh, so you like Trump? Oh, you must be a Trump supporter then. It's like how little you understand politics or electoral like procedural.
Well, that's because they live there's this bubble, and the bubble is America, and nothing outside America is a feasible option.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey man, what do you want? We're asking for a liberal democracy where there's 10 parties in a state, and those parties can come together or work with each other or not work with each other. Or do you want the other option, which is fucking revolution?
Yeah. I would argue that's a compromise. I would compromise with a liberal democracy with multiple powers.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like, this is our compromise. If we need to have our voices heard. If our voices are not heard within a liberal democracy, we won't believe in it. And it's not like we do, but like this is our compromise.
But we would be
to getting rid of it.
That would be the first step. That would be like extending an olive branch of like,
but it's just like Boeing. They don't, even though it doesn't take much of their, even though what the union workers are asking for a raise, there's really not much of their money at all. If they break that tradition of just not working with workers, then they're like, oh
set
shit,
a precedent
the entire fucking floodgate will come and we'll lose all of our power.
Speaking of, like 45,000 longshoremen also just went on strike.
Yeah.
So like the American docks,
if any other unions are listening, please go on strike. This is the time.
This is the time. Like there's about a month-ish left until the election, until the American presidential election.
It's a general strike.
The amount of damage you could do to the economy in a month of like any industry striking.
The libs would say, the Democrats would say, this is going to put Trump in favor.
They already did. They're already saying like these unions must want Trump to win because they're like, they're destroying the economy that Biden built up just before an election. They must want Trump. They must want Trump, which is just so like chauvinistic and weirdly like selfish to think like, let these workers starve in poverty because it's politically convenient. So it's like it's inconvenient for me to have you starve, so I need you to not talk about it for the next month.
Yeah.
Continue starving in silence,
Yeah.
please. It's inconvenient for me for you to not be able to pay your rent.
Oh my God, you really want this guy to win?
Yeah, it's
Wait, you
just-
haven't eaten in 2 days?
I fucking hate liberals, dude, and it's just that's why. And so
Okay.
yeah. Just they have the dumbest takes, like from the Chapel Roan to the unions to everything. They just consistently show up to just have the worst possible takes in history.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to make a couple prefaces for this episode. Let me set the scene for this episode. One, if you hear a dog shrieking upstairs, it's not being tortured, I swear. I will do my best to edit it out. We got a new puppy in our house. It's actually been a living nightmare because it's like a 2-month-old puppy. 2-month-old puppy just destroying my life. He's super cute. I'm kidding. We love him. But he's definitely raising hell upstairs. Raise hell and praise Dale. Second thing is, we recognize that there's a lot of domestic stuff happening right now. The vice presidential debate just happened on Tuesday, I want to say. The Hurricane Helene is like just ravaging the southeast. We are not indifferent or apathetic to that. We just aren't going to cover that today. There's so much that's happening in the Middle East right now, from the Iran, Lebanon, Israel, the Palestine, there just isn't enough time to talk about all of that and everything happening in America with the Boeing strike, with the updates to that, updates to the longshoreman strike, the vice presidential debate with the election looming, as well as Hurricane Helene. There's just a lot of foreign. There's like an hour's worth of foreign news, and there's an hour's worth of domestic news. We decided that we're just going to split the two, and so we just want to make it clear that we're not ignoring Hurricane Helene, and now something like over 200 lives have been lost to that. Cities are destroyed. Cities are underwater. The entire infrastructure is just destroyed in a lot of those cities. Making gas and water lines have been broken, so that there's a lot of homes without heat or clean water. It's awful. It's completely awful. And America's response, as always, has been pretty lukewarm at best. But they did send $8.5 billion to Israel, while those cities in Georgia and
Goddamn
Carolinas
right we did.
are underwater, and people are drowning to death. So instead of sending aid to those places, we send aid to Israel, which is just...
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Israel has a right to defend
Americans
itself.
have a right to starve.
Biden said that in the most recent thing. I think it was regarding... it was regarding the Nasrallah murder. So let's... I guess that leads us into our first story.
By the way, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Because I don't have headphones.
Oh, you don't have headphones on.
No.
I just noticed that. Where are your headphones? Oh, shit. They're upstairs. My bad, dude. Do you want me to grab them?
Sure, that'd be nice. I
Okay.
don't know what volume I'm at or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going okay for now.
Okay, we're back. Had a little snafu, but yes. So I guess we can move right into that. Speaking of, and I apologize. I actually haven't watched the video, so I don't 100% know how the name is pronounced. Is it just Nasrallah? Nasrallah? I don't know. He was the leader of Hezbollah. He was the guy. We actually just quoted him a couple weeks ago. The week before the Boeing strike, we had quoted him. He was in defense of the pager fiasco. He had said that was the guy who had said this was over a line. This was Israel has crossed the line, and they were kind of that the pager attack basically was just that was just horrific. That was horrific. That was the guy. He came out and issued this public statement saying that was how fucked up that was. Well, he was killed on September 28th, a airstrike in the suburbs of Beirut. A handful of people were killed, some top Hezbollah officials, but this is the guy. This is the Hezbollah leader. So this kind of has some political ramifications because this has actually weakened ties between Hezbollah and Lebanon and Iran. Now Iranian officials are starting to kind of question if Hezbollah's been infiltrated by Mossad. I guess that was one conversation that was taking place, is how deep does the Mossad infiltration go? And presumably Israel has spies. I mean, Israel's a pretty advanced U.S. backed. Their military is incredibly advanced. Their technology is incredibly advanced.
The technology is known to be sold to other countries. Back to the U.S.
Sure, and a lot of our police train in Israel because of the IDF and Mossad tactics. They're you can say what you want about Israel, but their weapons and their training and their actual military is incredibly dangerous, and they're way more advanced than the countries that they're bombing.
The soldiers are pussies though.
Their soldiers are just
the technology they're using is
it's a lot like America's army is we have the most high tech army in the world, but it's kind of incompetent anytime it goes anywhere. It's like we've lost to just like rice farmers and like, you know, goat herders like in the last 3 wars or whatever. And it's not to be racially like flippant, but like
to peasants, people
but like
that
we've
were
lost
farmers.
to peasants.
Yeah, well,
like
here's the thing: like at the end of the day, even though you might have a more powerful military, at the end of the it's your actual mentality.
Yeah.
You know, when you're an aggressor, when you're an oppressor, you don't have this urge of survival. When you're defending for your life,
for your country, for your neighbors,
you turn into an animal.
Yeah, we saw that in Vietnam, we saw that in Iraq and Afghanistan, and now we're actually seeing this with the Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi resistance to the Israeli like occupation in these places. We're seeing that response of like just incredibly stiff resistance that like nobody would have expected, and it's certainly not Israel. So anyway, this is from a Reuters article. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the killing of Nasrallah as a necessary step toward, quote, changing the balance of power in the region for years to come, end quote. So it sounds like this was like, well, obviously this was a targeted strike to like weaken the like. So this was a week-ish, or I don't know, 4 or 5 days before the ground invasion of Lebanon, which we'll talk about. So surely this was premeditated to kind of like weaken any type of resistance. Like if you're about to invade a country and you execute that country's like political power, like the top leader in that country, it's going to be, that means that the response to that invasion is going to be difficult. Like the reaction speed to that invasion is going to be slow. So like that was like,
you're at the top of your executive power, the one that makes
you just cut the head
decisions.
off the snake and then you invade the country. You're like, you made it very difficult for them to kind of form a defense, form a response. And that is what we'll talk about the Lebanese invasion, the Israeli invasion of Lebanon shortly. But yeah, Joe Biden said this was justified, and he reiterated in his little speech that Israel has a right to defend itself. And I don't understand how targeting an airstrike in another country to murder a political opponent or a political enemy in a neighboring country can be considered self-defense. If I go into your house,
American.
Yeah, we've made this analogy before, but like
Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, well, sure, there's that, but it's just like I don't understand. It's like I can't go into your place of business or your place of work or your house, murder you, and take your food, and then come back to my house and say, "Well, it's self-defense, man."
Dude, imagine just like you like close the door, lock it up, walk over like 3 houses down to your neighbor's house. You open up the door, it just happens to be open because they're open people, and then you walk up their staircase, open their bedroom door, shoot the guy in the head. Sorry, that was just self-defense.
Yeah.
Close the door and go back.
It's absolutely
police come. It's like, hey
insane.
man, they might have done something in the future, so I made sure to take care of it now.
Yeah.
It's like what?
Well, here's the unfortunate side effect of the airstrikes, because Israel has also been pounding Lebanon with airstrikes. Like this one airstrike killing Nasrallah is not an isolated event. There have been dozens and maybe even hundreds of airstrikes into Lebanon over the past couple of weeks. 1,000 Lebanese have been killed, many thousands have wounded, and now it's estimated over 1 million Lebanese have been displaced. Most of which since Friday, last Friday, where like the airstrikes have intensified. Now you have 1 million Lebanese displaced. In and around Beirut, and also in the southern region, which we're about to talk about. Hezbollah said in a statement that it would continue its battle against Israel, quote, in support of Gaza and Palestine and in defense of Lebanon and its steadfast and honorable people. So Hezbollah has said, even after Nasrallah's killing, they're still providing aid and defense and will come to the aid of their kind of Palestinian and Gazan neighbors.
Well, at this point, it's kind of personal.
They're
not just coming in the aid of Palestinians. They always were.
Yeah,
but
now they're defending their own country.
Pissed. Now you killed one of ours.
Well, that kind of leads us into the next topic, which is this Lebanese invasion. This is where where it's led up to on October 1st. So this was 4 days after the Nasrallah airstrike. Special special operations units, Israeli special operations units started kind of like leading little like probes into southern Lebanon and like targeting what they claim are like Hezbollah like weapons depots and caches of like like places that Hezbollah has like munitions. So like there's like their airfields and like weapons like different strategic and military targets. This is what Israel claims. I am not convinced, and I'm not an expert on Lebanese military, like their standing military or where their munitions factories. So take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, but I am not convinced that all of the munitions factories and all of the depots and all of the like missile sites and all of Lebanon's the supposed Hezbollah's like military power is all stationed right on the border of Israel, within like arm's reach of Israel. Like these small villages supposedly right in the path of Israel on the southern border of Lebanon, on the northern border of Israel. That's what Israel's claiming where all of the Hezbollah like targets are. That seems that would be foolish for Hezbollah to put all of their
it's like
military power
putting your major city, your capital city, 5 miles from the border.
Right on the border, yeah, on the border of a historical and like bloodthirsty enemy. Somebody has occupied your country for decades, who has invaded your country not even 20 years ago. And that's where you decide to put all of your like strategic military.
But then personally, I just do not believe anything Israel says.
At this point,
I have lost any. I can't. What's the term when you're trying to be like pragmatic, or you're trying to be like getting a benefit of the doubt? I cannot give Israel the benefit of the doubt anymore, because every time I have in the past 20 fucking years, they have just crushed that benefit of doubt, and they tell me that, hey, we are a fucking psychopathic genocidal state. And every single time we killed people was for zero reason. And if you claim that it was for, defensive purposes, just fucking anything Israel says, just flip it. You know, if it's defensive, it's offensive.
Well, it's like how Trump used to say, like, Trump used to just say random non sequitur shit that always just felt so random. And then it was like, it would always come to pass like 2 years after the fact that there would be some like leaked memo of like that thing that he was talking about was just projection, because it was like something he did.
He's getting it off his chest without anybody knowing.
Yeah, like the biggest thing he used to like, there was like the whole talking point at all of his rallies, and like, I don't know, forever ago was like the new low flush toilets. He would just bitch about the low flush toilets constantly, and these new low flush toilets. Sometimes you got to flush them 8, 15, 16, 20 times. You got to flush these toilets. And it was like the woke liberals want all the low flush toilets, and like now you have to flush more.
Or was it
that was his whole thing. Like he was bitching about that the whole time.
No more gas stoves.
The whole gas stove thing or whatever. But the thing about the toilet is like 2 years after the fact, I guess like a staffer finally like released this like expose or whatever that like Trump was constantly just trying to flush documents. Like that's how he used like trash cans. So it was just like he couldn't flush documents, and so like he just his dementia riddled brain.
Stronger toilets. I need the strongest of toilets.
So like every time he says something stupid, like it's because it was like him doing something stupid, and like he was just like turning that into an anecdote. And he was just being open about it, but we never found out about these until like 2 years after. For each one he did this, for like every time he said something stupid. So like he's been going on this whole tirade about like swimming. Would you rather like swim with a shark, or like jump into a water with a shark, or like get electrocuted by a water or whatever? And it's like, I'll take the chance with a shark or whatever. That's like, he's been telling the same anecdote at every rally, and I bet you 2 years from now we're gonna find out that he like fucking like dropped a toaster in the bathtub or something, and like he shocked himself. Like, I swear. Anyway, I don't know why I went on that tirade, but it's about the Israeli projection.
We'd like to get electrocuted. Maybe he's talking about death penalty?
I don't know. He's talking about a shark. He's talking about like if a boat is sinking and all the electrical equipment starts going on the fritz.
Yeah.
You know
I know that exact quote that you're talking about.
My point is that in 2 years, I bet you we're going to find out that he's doing something stupid at
Mar-a-Lago.
Whoever
you are. Cut that part out now, and when it pops out 2 years.
Yeah, because like we found out he was complaining about how toilets don't flush anymore, and then it was leaked a couple years later that he was constantly trying to flush just like documents and like papers. And everyone's like, stop trying to flush like your shoes down. Have you ever seen the episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where every time Frank gets nervous, he tries to flush his shoes. It's like, it's something I can control. And it's just like, stop flushing your shoes down the toilet. And like, Trump reminds me of Frank Reynolds from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Yeah. So Lebanese invasion. I think I mentioned on 10-1, they began those ground incursions. Oh yeah, because we're talking about the military bases and like whatever. So Israel, all right, so hold on. Let me back it up a little bit. Israel claims that these villages in southern Lebanon along that border pose a, quote, imminent threat. I think it was Netanyahu who used the phrase imminent threat. And they claim that they don't want to occupy the country. They just want to, like, neutralize this, like, threat in terms of, like, proactive self-defense, this kind of thing that Israel constantly claims of, like, if I go into your country and destroy your munitions depot, that's a self-defense to me. That's bullshit, and it's an attack on a sovereign country, but that's a separate conversation.
You're also destroying somebody else's
their right to defend themselves. Do they also not have a right to defend themselves from you? Like that's the
whole point of the ammo cache is to have the ammo to defend
it's
themselves.
Like that the tolerance of intolerance like paradox, right? So like, if you want a truly tolerant society, do you tolerate Nazis? Do you tolerate intolerance? But so like, does intolerating Nazis make you intolerant? Are you no longer a tolerant society? And it's like this paradox, but like, it's not quite a one for one, I guess, here, because like, you can't then say I have the right to self-defense to destroy your right to self-defense against me destroying your right to self-defense. That doesn't make any sense.
And then if that person tries to fight back, it's not self-defense.
It's not self-defense.
So
yeah,
the first person that strikes,
they're the first one attacking. Yeah,
so
and that's exactly what they said with Iran. That's like this unprecedented and unprovoked attack from Iran when Iran struck Israel with that big missile barrage the other day. Like, it's like, what? You've fucking bombed their embassies. Like, you've killed how many of their leaders? That's not unprovoked. That's not like, that is self-defense, but no, it's not self-defense, because what Israel did, those killings of Iranian citizens, was self-defense. So then what Iran did was an unprovoked, the first attack. It's just like the gymnastics like meme of like jumping, like the amount of like mental gymnastics they have to do to like justify their invasions and justify their attacks.
Usually when you have to do that, it means you're wrong.
Yeah, dude, it's just insane.
It means you have to do, again, mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
To just clarify position that you have. If you have to take 13 different fucking cuts and corners to justify your position, you're fucking wrong.
You're fucking up. Yeah.
Occam's razor. Occam's razor.
OCAM. Yeah.
Occam's razor.
Occam.
Akram.
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor. It's the Iranian razor.
It's the Iranian razor.
We'll give you real reason.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
half the price of Occam's razor.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Occam's razor. Is Occam a name?
I don't know.
Probably
Occam.
not.
It could be.
Okay.
It could be.
Could be. We'll say
cool.
it is now. Occam's razor.
My new son is going to be called Akram.
Okay. So, and they said that their goal is the stabilizing of that imminent threat, and then they've also stated their goal, and this is according to CNN. They say their goal is to push back Hezbollah, so like create a buffer zone in southern Lebanon, 10 miles back to the Litani River. So like that's their zone. Is like, if we can remove Hezbollah, speaking Israel, if Israel can remove Hezbollah and all of their military capabilities and all of their like military strikes and zones and assets, essentially get them back behind the Litani River. That's Israel's goal. That's what they'll be happy for. They'll be happy to do that, and then they'll go home. So they say, exactly.
So they say.
They said their goal is not to occupy Lebanon.
But that's Lebanon.
And that is Lebanon. And also, like, once again, I don't understand how Israel can like justifiably claim that they have the right to tell another country where they can place military bases. That is so fucking rich coming from a place like Israel, and backed by America, who has like 900 military bases. Probably in Lebanon we have one. How can then a Western country, which I'm including Israel as a Western country, claim that you can't put your military inside your country because it makes me and my country uncomfortable?
Yeah.
This is the 21st century. People have armies. You have to get used to that.
Dog, can you imagine like Mexico comes up, bombs the living fuck out of the first 10 miles of the US border, and it was we have to make sure that the US wasn't able military. There's no US military, and that they couldn't attack us.
Could you imagine?
San Diego completely wiped off the fucking earth. El Paso, Texas.
Yeah, Davis Monthan Air Force Base it's not 10 miles from the border, but like the huge Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona. There's a massive military base in Sierra Vista, Arizona, and this is all less than 100 miles from the border. Yeah. So like, imagine if Mexico were like, nah, I'm not comfortable with that base.
No, 20-mile
blow it up.
20-mile barrier.
Yeah.
What?
It's insane. It's just insane. Yeah. It's just hypocrisy of the highest order. And also, what makes this a little more sketchy is this is coming off the back of the Israeli war with Lebanon in 2006, when they invaded Lebanon in 2006, and then they literally occupied Lebanon for 18 fucking years. They pushed their military from 1982 to 2000. Israel occupied the entire southern half of Lebanon up to Beirut. So like, this is something that Israel has done multiple times, is invade and occupy Lebanon, and they've only been...
they're colonizers.
Yeah, they're literally... I mean, they're just colonizers.
That's what's...
they're just colonizers.
It's in their name.
So I don't know. We'll have to see. We're really in solidarity with Lebanese people, because like they're on this receiving end now that Gaza has been like obliterated, West Bank has been invaded and is now being obliterated, and now Israel's not done. They're moving their campaign of genocide and ethnic cleansing into the southern Lebanon. I wouldn't be surprised. We were talking about this a little bit off air. Is they're claiming that they don't want to occupy Lebanon. That's a red flag to me. It means that like they want to occupy Lebanon.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just annex the territory south of Litani River. Like they just that 10 mile because that's like pretty fertile land there too. Yeah,
they have done this before. I mean, look at the Golan Heights.
Yeah,
for decades
they just take it and they say, "We push you out. This is a pretty good real estate. Remax can build some pretty sick homes here, and like this is Lebensraum. This is like that living space. This is what's the Zionist word for
Lebensraum.
it? Lebensraum, yeah, the living space, yeah, living room. The German
space.
Idea of like
space, right.
yeah, of like needing room to stretch out for your people. The Zionists have I mean that's Zionism essentially is what that word means. But I thought Zionists had a word for it. I'm blanking on it now. It's that like there's a word for like right of return for the going home. For taking that space, there's a word for it in Zionism. I'm blanking on what it is, but also fucked up fun fact. You know who aided the Israeli army in the 82 invasion and occupation of Lebanon?
Egypt.
No, Lebanese, the Christian militias in Lebanon. So like evangelical Christians that were Lebanese, and like apparently they still account for like 30% of the population in Lebanon is like evangelical
30-40% are Christians.
Yeah, and those people, there was like these Christian militias that
a lot of them are Catholic too.
Yeah, I imagine that was kind of like they were like the turncoat kind of collaborators within the borders of Lebanon, aiding and like collaborating with the IDF.
I think over time they've come to realize how fucking. Because they're looking out for themselves, and I think over time some of them have realized, like, Israel's not an ally.
Yeah, they're not
because they're not. Because you have to understand,
because they're Christian,
Lebanon
but they're still
has
Arab.
their own internal politics. I mean, just like so, say half the country, half of Lebanon is Muslim, right? Hezbollah is a really like religious Muslim militia that is basically a political.
It's a political entity, a political party, and it is a complicated situation. Yeah, like.
But the thing is, like, if you're Muslim, doesn't even mean that you believe in Hezbollah. Because Hezbollah
one political party of many. Yeah, it's just the far.
And there's a lot of liberal. There are a lot of lefty fucking Lebanese people that are also Muslim, that are socialists, that don't believe in Hezbollah, and so just that political situation in Lebanon can be very frustrating and can be very complex. And so even though, the Lebanon is now being invaded, at first they're invading for Hezbollah, but everybody that is in the way of Israel is going to, receive this damage, whether it be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, atheist. It doesn't matter. People of Lebanon need to kind of put their shit aside and learn how to fight this fucking monster together. Otherwise, your country is fucking doomed. I'm sorry. Like, you guys, and I know if I had to choose a military prowess that was protecting my country, I would not want it to be a radical religious, zealots that are like protecting the country.
Sure.
Imagine, I think again, Hassan put it a great way. He's like, there's no way to explain to Americans how this is, but imagine aliens came down and then the whole army that was protecting you is an army of MAGA, and now you have to fucking deal with the army of MAGA and root for them to fight against the aliens, even though like I fucking hate these people. Fuck these people too.
Yeah, no, I mean that is a good way to put it. Yeah, it's really hard for America because we have no fundamental we have no like we have the MAGA right, but it's like they're not actually religious. They claim to be religious, but their beliefs are not dictated by a religious doctrine, right?
Also, Hezbollah is probably not as fucking intolerant as MAGA, literally.
That's fair, yeah. That's true. We know that to be true from like historical anecdotes of historical evidence that like, in fact, I would argue that like among world history from like 600-ish or whenever Muhammad the Prophet did his thing to today, like I think the Islamic religion as a whole has been by far the most tolerant religion on earth, like in terms of like just living cohabitating peacefully with other people. So like I don't grant the premise that like the Islamophobia and kind of like all Muslims are terrorists type thing, because like in fact the opposite is true. Muslims have typically been the most tolerant and the most accepting of other religions within their like region, going back through history and even like modern history. Like Jerusalem prior to Israel was like we mentioned this a year ago now. Almost, actually, shit, it's been a year since
it's been
just about a year since the October 7th attack that like that's kind of when we did that first or second. Whenever we did the early episode, it was like
immediately started. What a banger to start.
What a banger way to start a podcast. Yeah. I mean, I think we started in like August or September, and we were just talking about bullshit. But then like this happened, so this has been kind of guiding us. But my point is that, prior to the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian land, like it was a Muslim-controlled region, and it was like peaceful, and like these fucking tensions with
under the Ottoman Empire,
and going back to the Ottoman Empire, and going back to the caliphates in northern Africa and the Iberian Peninsula. They've always been tolerant of Jews and Christians within their lands.
If you go to Iran, which is the second largest harbor of Jewish people in the Middle East, they have their own laws. They go by their own laws. You'd be like, oh, you're gonna have to declare Sharia law on everybody, and it's like you go there and it's like actually Jews do not follow Sharia law in Iran. Why? Because they're not Muslims, so they're not going to impose that on them. And the Jews in Iran, I believe, have a right to drink. They have a right to buy alcohol. They have their own like self-governing system, which they have their own laws that don't abide. Yeah. That isn't pushed on other people, and other people's laws aren't pushed onto them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk a lot about like all of this, like the drama and like the instability of the Middle East, and like this question of like Israel's like safety, and like all of the southern Jordan and Lebanon and Iran and all of these surrounding countries. But I mean, like these are all only problems because of Israel. Like if Israel wasn't there would be no problems in the Middle East. They would be like
very minimal.
I mean, sure, there'd still be like the extremist groups that are like generally just anti-American, which who isn't, but like that would be an American versus like Taliban or ISIS problem or Al Qaeda problem. Right?
They would be way less anti-American if Israel didn't exist,
and if we weren't up in their
Israel
shit.
Israel exists because of the American propaganda and because of American supply.
And this isn't some like
weapons
poignant. Like I'm not coming upon this huge epiphany of like solving the problem in the Middle East. It's like people have known this for years. It's like it's our occupation of these countries that create militants. It's Israel's behavior in these countries that creates militants. If you kill a Palestinian father, you've created a Hamas son, and like that's not like this huge revelation. Everyone knows that, but it bears repeating that like all of these problems are because of Israel, not in spite of Israel.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just frustrating. Anyway, that Israel occupation, they pushed as far as Beirut in 82, and then in 83 they actually withdrew south because they were losing so many troops to guerrilla attacks by Lebanese like guerrilla fighters, which kind of again this big bad military just losing to what is essentially like peasants. But I mean, fighting urban wars is hard, and
you can't beat people that are defending. It's almost impossible.
It's if you're an occupying force, and especially if you're wrongfully occupying,
like nothing left practically, but
they're still fighting, and they're still like by all accounts like hard fighting, and like Israel, it's not going well for Israel. One Israeli like commander said that like if this goes on for another year, Israel's like military will collapse. Like apparently it's bad. Like I don't know if it's that bad. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if that's misinformation. Who knows? Israel's pretty shady when it comes to like their misinformation and their spy shit. But I don't know. We're hoping for the best for the Lebanese people. Stay sturdy, comrades. We'll see like how this shakes out. We'll be of course be following the Lebanese situation. We'll of course be following the airstrikes and kind of just the overall situation with Hezbollah. Just because we're going to focus on domestic news next week doesn't mean we're going to ignore this stuff. So if something if something breaking does happen, we'll of course report on it. But it's just been kind of just massive amounts of airstrikes. I think since October 7th, there has been a day where there hasn't been a volley of airstrikes back and forth between Yemen, Iran, and Israel, mostly coming from Israel, but Israel and Yemen.
I think Yemen sent some to Tel Aviv recently.
Yeah. Well, speaking of missiles in Tel Aviv, we can talk about these the Iranian missile strike that took place. I didn't have the date there. I think it was just 2 days ago, actually. Yeah. So it looks like it was yesterday, October 2nd, or excuse me, it was October 1st by our time. About 200 ballistic missiles were fired into Israel from Iran. Like we mentioned, it's a little less than what they shot off in April. I think it was about 300 missiles in April. And there was a drone attack in April. Most of those were destroyed by the kind of Iron Dome, Israel's like anti-missile defense system that kind of covers, I think it was Tel Aviv, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. But a few of the missiles did touch down in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but there were apparently no casualties and no significant kind of destruction of any kind of like military or strategic target. And I will say, here's an interesting point about this. We seeing a lot of like liberal Twitter talking about this is like how incompetent Iran is, or how unequipped their military is, because and they're judging that by how many civilians were killed. So like people are saying like nobody was killed when they struck these like suburbs of the residential area of Tel Aviv, because that's where the Mossad headquarters are. Is like they surround themselves with civilians, which is another point that people are making, which is that's what Israel was claiming. Hamas was using human shields because Hamas bases were in like a neighborhood or whatever. So just by the fact of having your enemy in a neighborhood, they were arguing that, well, surely that means that they don't care if the civilians get killed if we airstrike them. If we blow up the neighborhood, that's on them because they were in a neighborhood and not just out in a field waiting to be attacked. Well, yeah, the Mossad headquarters are in like a residential neighborhood, which is like the special forces or whatever, and also kind of, as I understand, it's both the special forces and like their like intelligence agency of Israel is also in a neighborhood, and that's where it was attacked. So people are saying, well, like, is Israel not using human shields by their logic? By Israel's own logic, they also use human shields, which is a whole separate pop. Like that's, I don't know, we don't have to get into that whole thing. But the fucked up thing about liberal Twitter and kind of like pro-Israel Twitter has been saying that they're judging the quality of Iran's military and airstrike capabilities based on the number of civilians killed, which tells you a lot about how they view successful airstrikes. They're basically saying then that they view a successful airstrike by how many civilians you killed. And that's like kind of a fucked up way to look at things, because Iran didn't kill any civilians. They must have a bad military. That's how like far from like that's how twisted their view of like a successful strike is now, that they gauge successful strikes
based upon death,
by civilian death. And like, if you don't kill civilians, then surely you're not an accomplished military. And of course, this isn't everybody. Every liberal on Twitter isn't saying that, but a lot are, and those voices are loud at this point, because it's just like, yeah, Iran didn't kill any civilians. Like that's a good thing. Yeah.
Is that all that you can do? Yeah. 3 deaths? What is that? There's no power for us.
Yeah, when we airstrike a neighborhood in Lebanon, we kill 33
They make sure to
people.
kill every child there, you know?
And it's like, it's just fucked up, dude.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like this whole Iranian bombing, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. This whole Iranian bombing thing, I don't know how much is going to come on this. This Iran, like I mentioned kind of not more than a few minutes ago, Iran, Yemen, I don't know if Jordan is included in this mix.
No,
Jordan's not shooting any missiles. But like, they've just been shooting missiles back and forth. This is just a big show of like, I think it's just, honestly, like they just have to show that they are doing something.
I think this is Iran's warning because they're about to basically invade Lebanon, and they've already invaded Lebanon to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And this is kind of Iran's warning. It's like, do not go farther.
Yeah.
Like, we're still here.
A fire across the bow, essentially.
Yeah.
Because
we're still here.
It is, yeah.
You know, it's like when you shoot like a fiery arrow as an army's walking towards you in the movies, you shoot the fire arrow and it just stops right in front of them.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, oh, okay, we don't go any farther.
Yeah. You know, fire arrows didn't really happen in history.
What?
Fire arrows weren't really a thing in history.
Nah, they were, but not as common.
That wasn't a way like you like.
That was more of like like a terror tactic that you sometimes use to burn down warehouses and stuff.
But you see like in movies, like everyone's lighting arrows and shooting. Like that's not how that works. Also, you know what else I learned is that the whole like knock, draw, loose, like telling your archers like when to fire.
Yeah.
That's like a made up thing for Hollywood, because like some archers shoot fast, some archers shoot slow. Like that's not the best speed for that archer. Some archers are going to get tired by having to wait. Some archers are going to be like, so that's just a Hollywood trope, the whole knock, draw, loose type thing. Like they were competent, like English longbowmen or whatever. They could fire on their own. They didn't need some grando to tell them when to fire. Again, that's a separate conversation. That's a whole other thing. I've just been getting into like medieval like martial arts or the martial combat recently.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Interesting. How's that going actually?
I haven't actually started anything. I went to one like fencing. I like went to watch like this exposition or exhibition of like a bunch of fencing. There was Italian rapier. There was longsword combat. There was a bunch of like French sabers, which was actually really cool. Then there was like traditional French like foil fencing, which was pretty cool. I'm going down again pretty soon to like get more into it. I haven't actually started yet. I'm excited though. I think I'm gonna enjoy being like a sword fighter. Stay tuned for me being a swordsman. Well, I mean, that's about all we have as far as all of this, the Middle Eastern kind of, the Middle Eastern Greater Coalition news. Like we mentioned, we're going to be back next week. We'll have a whole report back. Oh, shit, no, we're not back next week with domestic news because we're at the Claudia and Karina rally next week.
That's fine. Yeah,
so we're not going to talk about domestic or foreign next week. So we'll compile, maybe we'll do like a special episode, not next, but the week after, compiling, recapping, and following up on these stories from Lebanon and Israel and Iran, and then following up on all of the domestic stuff and kind of doing like a joint episode. Maybe if we need to go for a little longer, we can.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, we have that episode filmed earlier that week if we have the time, or a little later, like on a Friday instead of Thursday.
What are you talking about?
For next week.
Oh, for next week?
We can actually still film that
I
episode
am free Friday,
on the Friday.
Yeah.
And then we release the footage for the other one the week after.
Oh, okay. Just stagger it.
Yeah, that way we have like a good 10 days to edit instead of like just a quick edit.
That'd actually be better because then if we released the following episode after that video episode would be like our big election coverage because that'll be a week from the election, I think.
Yeah, we'll see what we're gonna do.
Yeah, we should time it so that it's somewhat closer to the election because the election is gonna be. And are we gonna do like special live coverage of the election?
I would like to. That'd be cool.
Just come over on Tuesday. Yeah, can you make that?
Yeah, on a Tuesday.
Yeah, but it's election day. Yeah.
What day?
November 3rd.
That's right.
Is it the 3rd?
Yeah. Wait, no, I don't work Wednesdays. I can come. Well, I get off at work at 6, but maybe I can get off a little earlier.
Okay.
I might be. I'll try to get here by. 6.
Yeah, I mean that'd be fun. There's no rush because the polls don't close on the East Coast until like 9. So like, you know what I mean. So like we'll be getting the West Coast results right around 6, 7ish. No, like 6 because the polls close on the West Coast at 5 or 6.
I kind of want to like take. Oh, well, you would still be at work too, right?
On a Tuesday, I get off at 4:30.
Yeah. See,
I get home at 5:30.
Yeah. So I would try to.
Well, I can get home and just set up the live stream and just vibe alone until you're ready.
Yeah, What I could do is ask for the last 2 hours off.
Okay. And it's November 5th, not November 3rd.
Oh, November.
Yeah, it's 5th. Tuesday. It's still a Tuesday, but it's just the 5th.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can figure this out later.
Anyways,
for everyone else, we appreciate you sticking with us. Again, I mentioned that's up top. We really. Smells like something's burning. Oh, we really appreciate you. We appreciate the appreciation and the support for our last live video episode. We're going to do another one next week, as you just heard us kind of planning. You'll get that in a week or two of the Claudia and Karina rally here in Seattle. As always, we're a member of the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network, so go ahead and give those guys some love. Follow those shows. Subscribe to those podcasts on the network. There's a bunch of good guys doing a bunch of cool stuff. Give us a follow. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment, share it with a friend. If you didn't know and you're watching this on YouTube, we have an audio version of this on any your podcast app of choice. If you're listening to this on a podcast, give us a 5-star rating or whatever rating you think you want to do and leave us a review there. We appreciate it. Again, tell your friends about that. Follow us on our socials. TikTok, we've been getting some cool traction and doing so. We've been releasing some longer episodes on our TikTok. So the shorter clips that we do where we talk for 5-10 minutes, we're releasing those on our TikTok. Revolutionary Rhetoric on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram.
And
what am I forgetting? Discord. Join our Discord. Revolutionary Rhetoric. All the links will be in the description below. And we do have a Patreon. We've been releasing some like bloopers, some behind the scenes stuff from our recent road trip to go talk to the Boeing interview, Boeing strikers.
And I think maybe if we have a good conversation, but it's not a part of that day on the podcast, it's not part of the discussion, we might throw that into.
Yeah, and like we talked on this episode that you aren't hearing if you're listening to this, but we talked for like 10 minutes about movies and TV shows and like kind of how Disney is like fucking up the entertainment industry. It didn't really fit tonally with the Lebanese invasion, so we're going to cut that and put that on the Patreon. So,
well, you'll have background episodes that nobody has, nobody gets to see.
Yeah, you'll hear me rant about Willow and talk about Acme and John Cena and a whole bunch of and Stephen King a little bit. We went off the rails for like 10 minutes. By we, I mean me. I went all over the place.
I was here for it.
Yeah. Anyway, awesome guys.
We're also part of the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network.
I said that. I said to shout them out. I think that's everything. I think I did everything. We're getting a point where we have enough shit where we need a script to close us out every time.
We should get one of those.
Just a poster. Just put it on the wall. Teleprompter?
No, teleprompter.
Oh, yeah.
So when we're done, we just click it.
Click the teleprompter. We probably should. Yeah.